I said something last week about the people who came, Phil, and the other lady and her son, and Phil replied on the thing that he wasn't trying to avoid this or anything, and I said, I'm not trying to embarrass you. That's not, I'm not putting a guilt trip on you.
Who is Phil?
He came while you were gone. He started coming.
Okay.
He's a really nice guy. And really
you mentioned him, and I thought, I don't know Phil.
Yeah,
he was here regularly, and then he said he's had some kind of family commitments or something.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what happened to, I can't remember her name right now.
Amy. She'll be back, I'm sure.
Well, he said, oh, I'm listening, or
Yes,
something,
yes. He's watching
I thought,
online.
who is he? You know?
And Amy also, she'll probably be back.
But that's part of what community is. If we have a community online, I appreciate that, and it'd be nice if people would comment, because you can comment on Facebook and say, I'm watching, or I'm here, or I like this.
I couldn't see you until the next day.
Well, you can still send that. You can send a comment anytime on Facebook. You can post a comment.
Yeah, and so I was saying good morning when I would watch it at the time, and then, but I was a day ahead of you, so,
Right.
and then, Sunday morning I turned and I thought, why am I not getting them? And then I realized, of course I can't.
Yeah, it's time and the universe is a complicated thing over what it was 150 years ago. All right, welcome to First Universalist of New Madison. On this almost fall day, I mean, it feels like fall, even though we're in the last day of August and summer. Okay, our topic is RV community. That's probably pretty cryptic. Talking about Richard Venus. Every place is holy ground. I went to one of his chapters, which is Rowing Together is the name of this chapter in his book. I highly recommend. Richard is a fantastic writer. And the first time I did Richard, I just read the essay, and that was incredibly boring because as nice as it sounds when you're reading it, it's not nearly as good when you're trying to recite it. So this time I put a little synopsis and added stuff to it. The picture is rowing together. Obviously that's the title, so we're rowing together. We're also going to talk about lifeboats, which is a lifeboat. We're also going to talk about the poor and the dispossessed, which obviously those are the poor and the dispossessed. So, do we have any announcements? Can't think of anything coming up in particular. The fair was good. I think everybody enjoyed the fair. I think attendance was down a little bit. And surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, they voted down 600 to like 250 alcohol at the fair, which really surprised me. Because if you've gone north into Mercer County or any of the more Catholic counties north of us, there's beer everywhere. They have beer tents, right in the middle of the street, and they don't seem to have any problem with it.
I think part of that was that one vendor is the one that supported the issue. One vendor put the issue on the ballot. And
was going to make all the money from the sales. So, and that could have been kind of a reaction to that one vendor.
Yeah.
But I thought it was controlled. I mean, it was only going to be at special events in the grandstands. They weren't going to be selling beer.
Yeah, just that one vendor under the grandstand. Yeah.
And only for special events and only for
inside the grandstands, although he had a window outside. And
they were going to be charging like $8 for a little cup of beer, which I can't see too many people getting drunk on $8 of beer. So whatever. It was just an interesting little point. Lots of interesting points at the fair if you get to talk to the board members and the ins and outs. So, all right. What did I do with my paper? Prelude, If I Loved You. loves you. Maybe a slightly different emphasis than we're talking about in church, because we are a church, Unitarian Universalist, and we talk when we preach love. Love of our brothers and sisters, and to assist them in any way possible. And this is the chalice lighting for Labor Day. On this Sunday before Labor Day, we light this flame to honor all work. Not only the work we do for pay with our hands, our backs, and our minds, that is important, yes, but also the work we do for love. The work we do to help others stay alive and belong instead of being outcasts. The work we do to ensure people are paid fairly, work reasonable hours, and have quality in their lives. The work we do caring for the young, the old, and the infirm. The work we do to mentor, to educate, to advocate, and to enrich the community, the country, and the world. We honor all the labors that support our world and all the work we do to make this a better place. Our opening hymn is 148. Encompass what it means to be a Unitarian Universalist. Then east and west will meet and share, and south shall build with north, one human commonwealth of good throughout the whole wide earth. That is what we are talking about. All right, our affirmation is the prayer of St. Francis by St. Francis of Assisi. Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is sadness, joy. Where there is darkness, light. O Divine One, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console. Not so much to be understood as to understand, not so much to be loved as to love. For it is in the giving that we receive. It is in the pardoning that we are pardoned. It is in the dying that we are born again to eternal life. It is in the giving that we receive. That's the cardinal rule we are trying to follow. All right, we've switched our arrangement as I told you before, informed before, joys and concerns, because the children's story kind of leads right into where we're going. So, joys and concerns.
Let us light another candle for the shooting in the Minnesota school. As I was preparing to come to church this morning, I saw on the CBS morning show, Steve Hartman, a special reporter for them, you probably heard his broadcast, is produced through, I believe, one of the other commercial companies, a tribute to various shootings of children throughout this unfortunate longer than should be history. It looks like it's going to be a phenomenal piece. And if you happen to see any references to Steve Hartman, it was just a piece of it, or an excerpt, I believe, on CBS this morning. It looks at the lives touched by the loss of innocent children, because it didn't get in too politically, but because of, in honesty, because our inability to control it. And it's a very interesting piece. So, in memory of those children lost this past week because of America's, I'll just use the word preoccupation with firearms.
I saw a thing on Facebook that I copied it, and I was going to put it in. I didn't have the time to stick it in the poster, but it is a sign, and I may bring it next week, that says, "We devote and thank the sacrifice of all the children who have given their lives that we can maintain our Second Amendment rights." Children are being sacrificed at the altar of the gun lobby. It's just incredible. And there is, not only that, if you probably heard in the news, they started out, it was because it was a trans person who did this, that it's mental health problems and it's trans people's fault. Then I saw another list of the number of trans people who have committed school shootings, 4. The number of white American males, 1,254. The division from reality is just astounding. It is, and it continues on. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about in today's presentation. Anything else? Israel, it is astounding. The more news comes out and the more we see the news of what's going on. If you saw the hospital where the 5 journalists were killed, do you know what a double tap is? A double tap is when you strike an area with a bomb or a suicide bomber or something, and then you wait 10 or 15 minutes till all the first responders come, and the people come trying to rescue the people who are injured, and then you hit them again. This hospital was a double tap. They hit the hospital, and then when all the journalists and the rescue people, the first responders, the paramedics came, they hit the exact same spot again, intentionally killing reporters and rescue workers. This is the people of Israel, the people who suffered the Holocaust, the people whose entire history has been being persecuted, the people who, if you listen to any Jewish presentation until the last 5 or 6 years, has been about helping the people of the world, helping the downtrodden, helping those who have been picked on, taking the side of the underdog. And all of a sudden, something has happened. And as we've talked about before, and we'll talk about again, it's not just with the Jews of Israel who have flipped. It's happening all over the world. It's happening in our country. Whereas people now praise being cruel and depriving children, separating children from their parents. ICE just arrested 2 firefighters in Oregon fighting a forest fire. They arrested them on the fire line and took them out of the firefighting service because of some question about their legality in being in the United States. We've kind of escaped the bounds of reality, the bounds of common sense, and that's the world we are living in. Ukraine. They are still bombing every day, and they've gone to the place now where they are bombing European embassies. They're bombing UN places where they try to bring relief to people. The war is getting farther and farther down in the hole, and there doesn't seem to be anything anybody can do about it. The United States has washed our hands of it. We are not offering any aid. Now the Europeans are stepping up, so we'll see if they are able to provide the backing. They are still standing strong, thank God. I have a couple of people, one of my renters is having medical problems. She's been in the hospital 2 or 3 times. She has a couple of kids. She has family, I think, that are taking care of them. But it's a strange situation. I think I told you about her ex-husband, or I think they're still married, but they're separated. I let him live in one of the houses we were working on in Union City, and he's gone back to drugs and made a tremendous mess. The police are calling me saying he has to be evicted. He's threatening violence, so we're going to have to follow that through. We're going up next week to clear out the place, and we're going to ask that the sheriff be there when we do in case he starts causing trouble. So it's not a real pleasant time. When you try to help people, sometimes it goes off on a strange direction, and you're actually getting into more, and I can see why people keep their distance from it, because you get into more trouble than you want. And it doesn't seem to be helping. So, but in my mind, that's still no excuse. It's not. You still have to try. So, all right. Anything else? All right. For those people who are absent, I'm not trying to make you feel guilty. Come if you can. Watch if you can on Facebook. And please, if you're watching on Facebook, just make a comment. I was here, or I enjoyed this, or could you do this, or let us know, because Facebook tells me that 7 or 12, 14 people watch, but I have no idea who they are, basically. And Facebook also says we have 128 followers. I don't know what that means. But when I look at statistics, how long they watched, like 15 seconds, a minute and a half, I don't see very many people watching for an hour, so I'm not exactly sure what's going on with that either, but I'm not a Facebook accomplished person, so if somebody can understand that and explain it to me. We will maintain our community, and that's kind of what the whole point of this is. We'll do the best we can as long as we can. All right. Happy Labor Day. If we haven't talked about that, that's not only laborers of the back and the mind, it's the laborers of all different kinds, and the appreciation that we have for them, which the country does not seem to be showing at the present time. And this is we'll see if it'll play.
The Liberty Church of the White Way Gospel Truth is on the air. Oh, let's open today with a reading from the book of Homonymies. It's not your Old Testament, not your New Testament, but your present testament written by me. This is one of my favorite passages. Homonymies 3:16, and it goeth on as it saith, Yea, verily, though I walk up through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for I am planted a rod. Hallelujah. Even the power, though, of the 357 Magnum cannot put us out of our misery today, flock. And I come today to ease that burden. I'm talking about that biblical relic, the mystery of the ages, the shroud of Turin. Amen. Yea, flock, but there are skeptics in this world, heathen, miserable, wretched skeptics. And what do they say? They say the shroud of Turin is a forgery, yea, a hoax, a sham, as phony as Jessica Hahn's endeavor. Myself, flock, no, I wanted to see this with mine own eyes, so I called and requested the shroud. And I took the shroud with my own hands, these hands, and I looked at it with my own eyes, these eyes, and I thought, biblical bamboozle. moment, I knew there was only one thing I could do. That's right. Effective today, yeah. We're marking now everlast peace in our shroud of current linen sail. Oh, that's right. Queen, king, the shroud of current linen sail. They may not be authentic, but they are machine washable. Oh, yes, the shroud of current proved to be a proper holster for your carbonated tested meal. That's why we have this big sale. Tests were taken and critics scoffed. But they are still 50% off. And I'll see you all during my personal appearance at the Reverend Skaggs Antiquity Clearance. Hallelujah. Oh, yes. Don't worry, flock. When the shroud of current linen is gone, we'll be getting in a shipment of shroud of illness linen, authenticated by the bacon study. Oh, don't make me holler, don't make me shout. Turn them pockets inside out. Say me, flock. Close enough.
Don't make me holler, don't make me shout. Turn them pockets inside out. The Reverend Deuteronomy Skaggs and the Little White Winged Church. That's the paean to Gary Burbank, who just died this week. Was on WLW. Actually, was syndicated in a lot of radio stations from the 70s, 80s, 90s. He was, I don't know, 40 years or so. He was on the radio. Multiple characters. Earl Butts, Earl Pitzoff. Just if you haven't heard of Gary Burbank, go on to YouTube and pull up some of his things. They're truly hilarious. So, but what the Reverend Deuteronomy Skaggs is, you can see that person on TV all the time selling pretty much the same stuff. It was a parody, but it's so close of a parody that it's almost, it's kind of painful to actually watch it. So, all right, we are into our presentation. If I can find the page. Okay, I had a request to do more religion, more scripture. So our scripture for today is John 8:32. The truth shall set you free. John 8, verse 32. This is from Christ. The truth shall set you free. This is from Richard's book, which I've referred to before, Every Place is Holy Ground When Religion is Not Enough, by Richard Venus. This is the chapter entitled Rowing Together, hence the picture that we started out with. This chapter starts with a funeral that Richard officiated, was attended by all kinds of people, but most noticeably a motorcycle gang pulled up and walked in. That's not local. So wherever the sirens are for, where our hearts are with you. The motorcycle gang came in and spoke of a brotherhood of the person who had died, the person who was the subject of the funeral, and praised that brotherhood and how close their brotherhood was. He was referring to their community. People can have a community in many different areas and many different places, and they can overlap or they can be completely different. This person who had died was pretty much an upstanding member of the community, fairly wealthy, which you have to be, I guess, to afford a motorcycle. From what I understand, they're not cheap. And you can't ride them all year long, obviously, so it's kind of a summer thing. But anyway, and the motorcycle gang has kind of a rough reputation, which some of them deserve it, and some of them are made up of doctors and lawyers who just like to pretend that they're tough guys. So, but anyway, that was their version of community, and that's what he started out talking about. Next, he talked about a story of a returning World War II veteran who was so traumatized that he couldn't speak. When he got off the bus, his family took him back to the farm, and he helped with the farm work, but never talked about anything that had happened to him in World War II. He was completely shut down. His sister kept sitting with him and talking to him and working with him, and one night he finally opened up, and in the story related by Richard, talked about all of the friends he had lost, all of the horrors he had seen, all of the savagery he had experienced. His community, the friends, the band of brothers had been shattered during the war, and he was struggling to fit into a new community and was not able to find that community. And they were hoping that with this breakthrough and being able to talk about it, he was being able to start a new community or find a community to fit into. His last example is the reason we're talking about this today, was the lifeboat conundrum, which I remember from junior high school. Maybe you had that in civics, or maybe that was just my civics teacher that used it as an example. She talked about if you were in a lifeboat after a disaster at sea, and the lifeboat is full, every seat is taken, and there are still people in the water, what do you do? What are the ethical, the moral, the ramifications of being in a lifeboat? What we're doing is extrapolating this because basically the world is considered a lifeboat. Some people consider the world a spaceship, all enclosed, all of our supplies, everything we have, our resources are all limited. How do we distribute them, and how do we do it, and what are the laws and regulations, and who do we give sensitivity to, who do we give help to, and who do we withhold help from? The reason I mention this, there's a guy named Garrett Hardin who in the 70s started out publishing some things that were pretty incredible, and we'll get into those as we go along. So, a lifeboat was full, there were people in the water. Do you let them drown? What if some of the current occupants were in such bad shape they wouldn't survive? Do you put them into the water and bring in the ones in the water who are in better shape? Do you go by the value of the life you are saving or expelling? What about the elderly in good health? Their life expectancy is a few short years. Should they stay in the boat while the young, healthy floated and died in the freezing water? Value? Should the convicted criminal be salvaged while the expectant mother froze? Should they draw straws and the losers jump into the water? This was the question, and in junior high, this was an open-ended discussion. There's no right answer. This is something to set you thinking. It was to stimulate thinking on the values that we hold dear. Richard's answer, and we're kind of skipping to the end, but I want to give you the answer, which I had not seen before, and I had never heard before I read Richard's little thing. And can anybody have a guess on what the true answer, or the Christian, the Universalist answer is? It's so obvious when it's explained to you. The able-bodied people in the raft, in the lifeboat, took turns getting into the water. They would bring somebody in the boat, and somebody in the boat would get out. They would serve their 1 hour, 2 hour, whatever the time duration was, and they would get back in the boat, and somebody in the boat would get out again. That way, everybody survived, and everybody was able to share the difficulties and share the positivity of what was going on. And basically, they created a community. And whose idea was it? And why is that so foreign to us? Why did it take me 50 years to think about that, or to be aware of it? It never occurred to me when I was, 14 or 15 in junior high school, 13, whatever the age was. The teacher never mentioned it. I don't know, maybe she had never thought of it either. And nobody in class thought about it either. And we discussed, people would take different answers, different questions. The elderly should be thrown in because they're going to die anyway. I mean, the criminals should be thrown in because they don't deserve to live, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody makes moral judgments on their own understanding of it, but nobody said if everybody shares, everybody survives. That is what we're following today. All right, the reason I bring this up is a guy named Garrett Hardin, one of the first MAGA people before there actually was such a thing as MAGA. He wrote in 1974 about lifeboat ethics, the case against helping the poor. This is the title of his article, Lifeboat Ethics, the Case Against Helping the Poor. He fertilized the ground for Ronald Reagan to harvest in the 80s with welfare queens and government waste, meaning giving your money to the poor, read here the undeserving, was a waste of money, and it caused more problems than it was worth. This was part of the great 1970s overpopulation. The world was going to be overpopulated and run out of food and everything else. So we need to start eliminating the overpopulation. One of the ways that he planned on doing that was casting the poor overboard and leaving them overboard. And he was creating an ethical outline as to why that was the correct thing to do. The exact same thing we see now. The poor are swimming in the Middle America, Africa, and Saudi Arabia, or not Saudi Arabia, but the Arabian, like the Palestinians. We are not to let the poor into our country and share with them. We are to cast them back out of the boat, build a wall, not let them come in, and who cares what happens to them? Whatever happens to them is their own fault. All right, the picture we see today, the poor are sinking outside the rich nations and trying to climb on board. We catch them at the borders and throw them overboard again and again. Many rich nations, such as Britain, Germany, and France, have tried hospitality. Basically, Germany allowed multiple people into the country and did well. They all had jobs. They're not a drag on the economy. The economy needed new workers. But because fear is the thing that many people who are opposed to helping other people count on, they use fear of the unknown, fear of the different, fear of the new. And they created, even in Germany, with its history of hostility toward different people, there is a resurgence of that kind of conservatism, that kind of, basically it's a resurgence of Nazi belief in Germany as well. And they are having trouble maintaining a public support of helping. And this is in the face of, for instance, in Japan, you may not know, the birth rate in Japan is suffering unbelievable. They are not even replacing, there are more people dying than are being born in Japan. The population of Japan is shrinking. The Japanese are very homogeneous. They're very suspicious of outsiders, even outsiders that look like themselves. Koreans, for example, want to come to Japan and work. It's very, very difficult to get into Japan, and Japan does not welcome outsiders very well. That's been a historically Japanese trait. The problem they're running into is, in any Social Security system, it is the people who are working age now who contribute to support the people who are past working age, who are on Social Security. You all know that when you were in working, you contributed to your Social Security. What that contribution went for, it wasn't in the bank for you to draw out when you became 65. It was spent immediately taking care of the people who were already 65. The supposition being, when you get to be 65, the people who are 35 are paying into the system, and that supports you. This system works fine as long as everything is balanced. And I guess I would say in our case, the federal government has borrowed money from the Social Security system. There is plenty of money in the Social Security system, but it's been borrowed by the government, so the money has been taken out. It's not that it isn't there or wasn't there, it's been taken. But that's a separate subject. But what happens is you have more old people than you have young people, then you don't have enough people contributing to take care of the old people, and the situation gets worse. The answer in Japan would be immigration, letting new people come in, because they can't find people to fill their jobs, to do the work that has to be done, which is one of the reasons Japan is a leader in robotics, because they are using robots, machines, to do the work that people used to do. So anyway, that's kind of a little sidelight on that. It can be noted, these countries, Britain, Germany, and France, welcomed the foreigners until the people like Nigel Farage and the conservatives began to rail against having people who don't look like you, who don't speak like you, whose customs aren't the same as you, whose religion isn't the same as you, began to get people riled up with fear. Some countries were ahead of the game on that, more advanced in what I call MAGA behavior. For example, Hungary and Poland. And the sad thing is, in Hungary and Poland, not only does the antagonism toward foreigners and immigrants, that's the leading edge of the camel's nose under the tent. The next thing is, these people also want to eliminate democracy. They want one strong leader to be in charge of everything. Does that sound familiar? We had buttons at the fair, no kings in America since 1776. And we're going to talk about this. I guess you could say this is a little look at next week's presentation. How many of you are familiar with Superman and Bizarro World? If you want to get a heads up on what's going on next week, look into Bizarro World, and that's what we'll be talking about. All right, the primary message is fear of the dispossessed. Just as we hear at our borders, rape, robbery, they will take your job, your Social Security benefits, they'll take your medical services. In fact, one of Hardin's arguments is the outlanders breed at twice the rate of the natives. This goes back to the overpopulation, that the world does not have enough resources to supply everybody in the world, and we need to shrink the population. Interestingly enough, he cites statistics that in the poorer countries, Latin America, South America, Africa, the population increases at more than twice the rate of the population in the productive rich countries, the capitalist countries of the North. One of the most interesting things they found is the reason that is income, guaranteed income and support. All of these countries in South America, Latin America, South and Africa, when the income and social support rises, the birth rate goes down. People don't have kids because they want to have 50 kids. They have kids because that's their only means of support in old age. When they find out they have support in old age and that raising kids is expensive, and they all still have the common thing, the common belief, they want to have their kids have a better world, and they want their kids to have a better life than they do. They have fewer kids so they can save for their education and train these kids and give these kids a better life. So the better the economic situation is in these countries, the fewer kids they have. And then, of course, we have the problem of religion when it interferes with, like preventing birth control, preventing abortion, preventing some of the things that control. And it's kind of a strange reverse psychology. These people who say there's too many people in the world, they're the ones who say no abortion. If you get pregnant, you have to raise the child. And of course, along with that is their support for children stops at birth. They're the ones who say we're not going to provide free lunches for kids in school. We're not going to provide lunch for kids during the summer. We're not going to provide food benefits. SNAP is being cut. Medicaid is being cut. Medical care for these kids is being cut. It is a really strange situation that we are watching. It's like a disconnect between what people think and what they say and what they actually do. A tremendous disconnect. So what we get to is immigrants are needed to fill service jobs and support the economy. Who are the roofers, the field workers, the landscapers, the nursing aides, the people who take the register at Walmart? They're either old people or they're immigrants. And yet we are throwing out immigrants, and you can see this all over the West, particularly in farms, the bigger farms. The price of lettuce is now $2.20 a head. A year ago, it used to be $1 a head. Everything is going up, partially because of the drought, but mostly because there's no labor to pick any of these things. Fruits and vegetables are going unharvested in the fields. It is really a crime. And the other theory that Hardin had, and he's the guy I've really concentrated on, he maligns the poor from all angles. The next one is called The Tragedy of the Commons. How many of you are familiar with the Commons in England? This is a layover or a carryover from the feudal times, from the manor houses in England, when the manor lord or the lord of the area owned everything, literally everything. They owned all the pastures, all the fields. They even owned the villages. They owned the church. They own entire swaths of territory. Everybody who lives in the village works for the Lord or rents property from the Lord. And this still actually carries on today. If you watch the British crime shows or the British individual shows, you can see this. Even the All Creatures Great and Small in the 40s is when they were doing that show. The Lord of the Manor still was the one who controlled the village and controlled the things in the village. It was pretty incredible. But This is called the tragedy of the commons. It was a feudal creation that persisted in Britain due to the continuation of the class system, and it still is there today, and not as great as it is today. The manor houses owned all these lands, pastures, rivers, even entire villages, and Hardin, with his MAGA viewpoint of man's nature being basically evil, or more accurately, selfish, observes that the common land is despoiled by each person using it to full personal advantage, and the economic resources leave nothing for the neighbors or the future. What he's saying is when you have common land, the people who use the common land will go out and take as much as they can out of the common land for their personal use. They'll graze as many cattle, as many sheep as they can. They'll overgraze it and run it into the ground. They will go into the forest and cut all the good trees and not leave any trees for future generations. They will harvest all the gravel, or they will take all the fish out of the river. And you can see this in the way people behave now. It's the same principle of stripping an area from its resources and leaving nothing for the future. The problem with this is, and the problem with this viewpoint is, well, let me read a direct quote from Hardin, and we'll go, this is kind of, we can extend that to the MAGA people of today. We are all the descendants of thieves, and the world's resources are inequitably distributed. But we must begin the journey to tomorrow. Let's read another page. From the point where we are today. We cannot remake the past. We cannot safely divide the wealth. This is his viewpoint. We cannot safely divide the wealth. I want you to remember that and say, is that actually true? We cannot divide the wealth equitably among all people so long as people reproduce at different rates. To do so would guarantee that our grandchildren and everyone else's grandchildren would have only a ruined world to inhabit, creating fear, saying that the world is on a path to destruction if we keep on going the way we are now. Altruism, giving to poor people, is a big mistake. To be generous with one's own possessions is quite different from being generous with those of posterity. We should call this point to the attention of those who from a commendable love of justice and equality, would institute a system of the commons, either in the form of a world food bank or of unrestricted immigration. He is saying that if you believe in a world food bank or unrestricted immigration, you are condemning your children to poverty and despair and the destruction, literally the destruction of the entire world. We must convince them if we wish to save at least some parts of the world from environmental ruin. Without a true world government to control reproduction and the use of available resources, the sharing ethic of the spaceship is impossible. For the foreseeable future, our survival demands that we govern our actions by the ethics of a lifeboat, harsh though they may be. Posterity will be satisfied with nothing less. His lifeboat, where the weak are sacrificed for the salvation of the strong, is making assumptions which, as we talked about earlier, assumptions that we either didn't think about or were not suggested. We talked about overpopulation, how if you increase the security for the families, there is no such thing as overpopulation. Birth rates go down because people care about their kids. If you take income and spread it out among other people, then people have a chance for everybody to succeed. The lifeboat theory that we talked about, when people get out of the lifeboat and get into the water and then let other people come back into the lifeboat and then get back out of the water and back into the lifeboat, that is the theory of socialism. That is the theory of social democracy. That is what Roosevelt talked about. That's what we instituted in the 30s and the 40s, the social system that prepared this country for years and years and years of growth. The interstate highway system, and I've talked about that before, the tax rate on millionaires was 90% in the 50s. 90% of their earned income was taxed. That is incredible. Now it's down to 28%. In fact, the billionaires pay a lower tax rate than the average middle class person. Basically, it's Robin Hood in reverse. The rich are robbing the poor instead of the poor robbing the rich. So, just like the lifeboat, people can cooperate and take turns in the frigid water and create a better world for all people if they will give up a little bit of their personal gain, which they refuse to do, and they're being supported and reinforced in that. So, John 8:32, the truth shall set you free. What they don't say is, lies will enslave you. The truth will set you free, but lies will enslave you, and we are flooded, inundated, covered over with lies. Everything you see on TV from the government is lies. It is unbelievable. We've been told we can't trust the government, and they are proving it with every day the actions that they take. So, lies will enslave you, not just your judgment, not just your mind, not just your spirit, but even your body. Okay, comments? A little disjointed, but I think the idea that we can work together, and we have worked together. The Commons in England has worked for generations because the Commons are ruled by the community, or even when the Lord the Manor, he is hopefully smart enough, which is beginning to come up to a question now, to know that if he allows people to destroy the Commons, it will destroy the future of the Commons. The people in charge, whether it's a democracy, whether it's a common council, which in England now it's in more times it's a common council, say you can only have so many people, or so many cattle grazing, you can only have so many sheep grazing, you can only take so much out of the gravel pit, you can only cut so many trees. You can judge, you can rule, you can conform, you can basically control what goes on in the Commons and share with everybody and make it, and that is the whole point of the whole Environmental Protection Agency, which is disappearing. If you want to protect the environment. Don't say you can do whatever you want to the environment in the name of capitalists. I'm going on and on here. All right. Okay. It is time for, if you have something to share, please do, and we're going to hear my sheet. I got rhythm. All right. week. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung through every land by every tongue. The closing hymn is 121, We Will Build a Land.
This is a long one, so let's just do verses 1 and 4.
Okay. Sisters and brothers anointed by God may then bring peace, where justice shall roll down like waters and peace like an ever-flowing stream. Good lyrics. All right, Extinguishing the Chalice, Our Calling in the World by Rebecca Savage. We have come to the end of our service, but not our calling in the world. We close our time together with the humble reminder that justice and equity are our spiritual practices to embrace. Each day, every day, we are blessed to be the embodiment of what is possible when justice and equity ground us in all that we do. May we go forth with the light and warmth of our chalice in our hearts until we are together again. A nightingale sang in Berkeley Square is our postlude. are so appreciative of music, and we miss Roberta. Wish she was here to play. And if anybody is talking to her or if she's watching, we'll come get you and take you home again. You don't have to stay there unless you want. All right, I'm making an exception this time because the only horse in this is the hinder end of the horse that's sitting at the table. This just stuck in my craw, so I just had to do this.
In American history, for working families, the average family of four is going to save about $10,000 take-home pay more a year. Semiconductors. Like, America's the land of opportunity. How did we get to become this awesome nation? Because we believed in the American dream and we leaned in on it. But the wealthy in our country and the coastal elites that live away from where stuff's actually made, they just lost their way, and politicians just let them have it. Your tireless campaign and your relentless messaging made people realize the American dream isn't dead. It's just been smothered, and we're unsmothering it and setting it loose. God bless your efforts. God bless your assembly of this team around this table. We're bringing the American dream back.
Mr. President, everybody here who spoke works at the Department of Labor, clearly. Which I love. They have all the correct talking points, but I think that's a testament again that we are all working together every single day. We talk to each other often, and the workforce, the skilled workforce, the education factor, retirees, it's been so important because they all touch the Department of Labor, and I have the opportunity to work with every single one. If you all haven't stopped by the Department of Labor, Mr. President, I invite you to see your big, beautiful face on a banner in front of the Department of Labor, because you are really the transformational president of the American worker, along with the American flag and President Roosevelt, because we're bringing business and labor together, and I was so honored to unveil that.
At this moment in time, which I do believe we're in a revolution, 1776 was the first one, 1863 or so with Abraham Lincoln was the second. This is the third, with Donald Trump leading the way, and we are saving America. And American history.
I don't know if you heard the history of this. This cabinet meeting went on for 2.5 hours. Every cabinet member, it was like watching Korea. Every cabinet member had nothing but effusive praise for the great leader, for the dear leader, over and over and over. It was like watching some third world country dictatorship. And have you seen the picture of the Labor Department? There is a giant banner, just like North Korea, with Trump's face on it hanging from the Labor Department. We are getting closer and closer to being in a Korean situation where you're not allowed to say anything against the dear leader. And if you notice, when people in the departments, the FEMA people complained, they were all fired. If somebody from the Justice Department complains, they're fired. Anybody who
For
doesn't...
labor statistics you don't like, you just fire the person in charge of everything.
Yes.
Roll that up just a little bit as a replay and capture the expression on his face. It's an early part
Families,
of
the
the
average family of four is more tireless.
quick.
But realize the American dream isn't dead. It's just been smothered, and we're unsmothering it. For God bless your assembly of this team around this table. We're bringing the American dream back.
Mr. President,
That is pure joy in that man's face. He's eating it up because he is so ego-driven. Look at his expression. He's happy.
And we will eventually... I'll bring
Because
in-
his ego is being reinforced and amplified to his personal satisfaction.
Look up Bizarro World. That's what we're talking about next week. I'll have all kinds of pictures. The Oval Office, they'll have, we can compare pictures of when Reagan, when
It's
Bush.
Rococo.
Yeah, everything is gold. Literally everything is covered with gold.
It goes beyond Baroque.
Yes, it's beyond Baroque. But this is the mentality of like a 5-year-old. It is scary what we are being following down.
Look at that innocent expression on his face. He is just eating it up.
And when anybody wants anything, all they have to do is flattery. Putin comes in and tells him what a great person he is, and then all of a sudden Russia's right. And Russia didn't invade Ukraine. Ukraine asked to be invaded. It's Ukraine's fault.
And you can tell the whole world that as you yell and insult the president of Ukraine
Yes.
and have that broadcast around the world.
It's
And then the next time around, you can be conciliatory because you might just get the Nobel Peace Prize if you broker this and be nice.